Let me just. Okay, right. I've pressed record. We're ready to go. I've got the presentation up. You can see it. Great. Okay, so hello everybody, and thank you so much for being here. I do really appreciate you giving up your time to come to this presentation either live or watch it in your own time. I'm really excited to run this workshop. I ran a similar one last year where I covered mostly nutrition, and this one is a bit more like holistic focus. We're talking about nutrition, exercise, and just how to feel your best over summer, essentially. That's why I've called it Feeling Amazing in Your Body this summer. And beyond that, this isn't a fad, do these strict things for summer. That is definitely not my vibe. If you've been following me for a little while or you've come across my content, you will definitely know that I'm very much about building long-term habits which you can sustain. And in case you haven't seen me much or haven't seen much about what I do, I did think I'd start with a brief reintroduction. So, hi everybody, I'm Sian Childs. I'm a health and fitness coach for women who want to feel stronger, healthier, and more confident in their bodies, and who want to do this without having to completely overhaul their lives. I work with women who are busy, they're often juggling work or motherhood or both, or generally just they're kept very busy by the never-ending to-do list of daily life or things that they've got going on in life which keep them really busy. They're quite often used to putting themselves last when it comes to their health and fitness, even though they know they do need to look after themselves as well to basically show up in their everyday life and do the things that they need to do. Many of the women I coach already have a good sense of what they should be doing, but they struggle to stay consistent without the right structure, support, and accountability. And what I do is I help them build sustainable habits around food, movement, and self care so that they can feel good in their bodies and not just for a holiday or special event, because I don't, like I said, put them on a quick fix fad diet or exercise plan. But I really focus on helping them build behaviors which serve them all year round. And I really hope that this workshop will give you some practical, realistic tools, and that hopefully my content in general can be a place where that you can come back to when you need clear, helpful, um, and just concise advice, really, that actually works. If you're here today, you probably already at least know some nutrition and exercise basics, like the importance of protein and vegetables and keeping an eye on your portion sizes and exercising regularly. So today isn't about teaching nutrition and training 101. However, if you do want more clarity on any of the basics after watching this talk, just let me know, as I do have some free resources that I could send you. So today's workshop, and I will finish this introduction in a second, is about cutting through the noise that you're likely exposed to on social media and in the media in general. And it's about helping you build a flexible, realistic strategy with your health and fitness that actually works in real life, especially during these summer months when things can feel more chaotic, more sociable, more indulgent. And I would love to help you make this the most enjoyable and balanced summer that you've ever had. I want to show you how you can continue making progress towards your goals pre, during, and post summer without any feelings of I've ruined it or what's the point or I'll start again in September. I want to help you build a strategy for your health and fitness goals, which is realistic, enjoyable, and ultimately fits into your life and fits in with what you've got going on. And it's therefore something which is sustainable throughout summer, but also way beyond that too. So, although this workshop does have a summer theme because it's the time of year that we're doing it, the concepts are all applicable all year round. So, you can repeat these behaviors and remember this mindset at all points throughout the year. So, hopefully, it's going to be really helpful. Okay. So, let's start about something that is a really common pattern, basically, that I see. And I call that the summer struggle loop. And it usually goes like this. So you might have a holiday coming up and you try and restrict before that, especially if you feel it creeping up quickly and panic sets in. So you might start thinking, I need to feel better in my swimsuit, or I want to feel more confident in my summer clothes, or even like I know I'll gain weight on holiday, so I need to be extra good. I've heard that so many times, like be extra good now to make up for it. So you might, and I'm not saying you do this now, but you might have in the past, or you might, have those thoughts in the future of like, right, I need to cut out carbs, I need to skip meals, I need to try and eat as little as possible, or go mad with exercise. And you can basically end up going into what you might think is like damage control mode. But what often happens is that you end up feeling tired, low energy, maybe even moody or foggy, and you're running on fumes by the time your holiday rolls around. Then you go on holiday, and what can happen is that it's all out eating and drinking because, and this is way more likely to be honest, if you have been super strict beforehand, because you've been depriving yourself for days, weeks, maybe even months. So Now, of course, you feel like you deserve to go all in, and you're not really thinking about how that might leave you feeling by the end of the week, which is, bloated, sluggish, uncomfortable, disappointed. Or on like another end of the spectrum, it might go the other way. Maybe you didn't really manage much prep before the holiday. So once you're there, you tell yourself, oh, well, it's too late now. I'll just start fresh when I get home. Then, after that period of indulgence, you come back from holiday, or maybe you end the summer feeling like you've undone everything. And, you try and fix it with more restriction then. So, this cycle then just continues. Um, it continues into autumn, winter, and then again we're in spring, and then we're in next summer. So this is where you might relate to some of the things that I'm saying if you've had these feelings or these behaviors happen to you before. And I'm going to be totally honest, I definitely have. And that's what's led me to develop my way of thinking and how I work with my clients now. This loop is really so common, and I see it play out every single year. But I do have really good news for you, and that's what I want to share in this workshop is that it doesn't have to be that way. And today I want to show you how to break that loop by zooming out and looking at the bigger picture and learning how to adjust what you're doing instead of overhauling everything, because the best changes and the ones that stick usually are the ones that feel small, realistic, and manageable. So before we dive in, I just want to quickly share how what we're covering today fits into the bigger picture of how I work with my clients in my Thrive coaching program. And this is my online coaching program that I've built for busy women who want to feel healthier, stronger, more confident in their bodies without restrictive diets or all or nothing thinking. And I called it Thrive because where I realized when building it that I didn't just want to help people with weight loss or physical changes. I mean, yes, I absolutely will help with those things. But what I really want to help you focus on when you work with me is how you feel. And that's what I want to do in this workshop today. For example, I want to help people have more energy so that they're able to keep up with their kids and their career without burning out. I want them to go out for family meals and go on holiday feeling confident in what they're wearing and to be able to enjoy the food and drink that they love guilt-free. I want them to feel like their best selves and however that looks to them. And essentially, I want them to thrive whilst living their life and doing the things that they love. And the principles that I'm sharing today come directly from Thrive because they're such a key part of making progress that actually lasts. And at the heart of this program is the idea that sustainable nutrition and exercise is eating and moving in a way which suits your goals, yes, which is important, but whilst also fitting those things into your life. And that's what we're going to discuss more on the slides ahead. And how I've built this program is it's around a clear roadmap basically, which includes exercise and healthcare as well as nutrition and self-care, sorry, with 3 phases to meet you where you're at. So we start with the foundations. Some people join and they're already doing the foundations, but that's where we focus on nutrition and functional habit building. We prioritize learning how to fuel your body, move consistently, build simple self-care habits that feel manageable and beneficial for you. Then, once people are comfortable with those things, we will accelerate, we will step it up essentially. And once those basics are in place, that's when we layer strength, structure, and momentum to help people see progress without sacrificing, again, doing the things that they love or promoting burnout. And finally, we'll focus on, thriving for life. We want to sustain those habits and we focus on maintaining the results long term. And that is adapting to real life, holidays, busy seasons without ever going backwards. And whether you ever join Thrive or not, what I want you to know is that there is a process and a plan that works, that isn't a restrictive diet. And today's workshop is basically a little taste of that. Because my goal as a coach and as someone that creates health and fitness content online is to help you feel in control, supported, and proud of what you're building, both now and in the long run. And the concepts I'm sharing today are ones that you can take and use well into the future. So I wanted to share that with you because, as you can see, these points and the advice I'm going to give today aren't things that I've just taken out of the top of my head to create a quick workshop. They're part of my coaching philosophy, which I'm so passionate about and which has allowed me to help so many women improve their health and fitness over the last 9 years that I've been your personal trainer. And it's allowed me to help women achieve their health and fitness goals, but also whilst building healthy habits and maintaining and nourishing a healthy relationship with food and exercise, which really is so important to me. And I think hopefully you'll get that vibe throughout the workshop as well. So let's get stuck in then fully to all my advice that I'm hoping will really give you lots to get stuck in with this summer and lots of reassurance, hopefully, that likelihood is you're already doing some of these things. So, firstly, I want to go through and actually, let me just double check that you're all doing okay on the chat. Perfect. Okay. So, this is my summer strategy framework, and this is where things start to come together. So, I like to break it down into three key phases: before summer, during summer, and after summer. And why does this matter? It's because having a clear plan for each and like a clear focus for each phase means that you're not constantly second guessing yourself and you're not wondering, what should I be focusing on right now? Or how do I get back on track after a holiday? Having a framework and a strategy in place, it means that you've already mapped it out, you've already got an idea of what you're going to focus on, and you know your priorities going into summer, which I think is really, really helpful. I talk a lot about planning, like when I'm talking on social media and with clients, and I think having some sort of plan, it doesn't have to be rigid, but a structure and a framework can really help. You know then how to navigate things during the holidays, during summer, without guilt or throwing in the towel if things go slightly off piste. And just as importantly, you know how to reset afterwards gently and without going into that spiraling mindset if you feel like you haven't quite stuck to your plans. Because let's be honest, summer is a time for enjoying ourselves. Life is a time for enjoying ourselves as well as being structured and consistent. So it's just about having that flexible, kind of more holistic, less of an all or nothing mindset. And a framework like this gives you clarity, focus, and basically a realistic plan of action, one that works with your life and doesn't work against it. So let's dive into each of these phases now and talk about what it can actually look like in practice. By the way, I should have said at the beginning of this, if you have any questions as you go through, please feel free to pop them in the chat because I can discuss them at the end. And there will be time to ask questions at the end as well. There's no pressure to, but you do have the opportunity to. Don't feel like you have to hold anything back if you do want to share. I will definitely go through them. Okay, so before summer then, your game plan. So I've got 4 points here that I think are really key and will be really helpful. So let's talk about what to do before summer. And I like to call this like kind of like your pre-season phase. And it's the period where you know you have something to work towards, which is likely now as we're doing this workshop. And you can put plans in place to make progress in a certain time frame. So as I record this workshop, we're literally about to enter summer. It's the 18th of June today, and I think it's officially summer solstice in a couple of days. If we consider the main summer period as July and August, which I think in my head I definitely do, we still have a good few weeks of getting our heads down and building some really consistent habits. Some amazing progress can be made in just a few weeks when you're consistent. And here's how I'd like to look at it. So, step one, choose your focus. Before anything else, it really helps to get clear on what your focus is right now. You might have goals that you want to achieve in the future, but what can be your focus right now that you can get started with right away? There is no one size fits all, but here are two common goals. One is fat loss, and I mention fat loss, not weight loss on purpose, because the number on the scale doesn't always reflect real progress. Fat loss is essentially about changing your body composition, how your body looks. So it's about losing body fat whilst keeping a good level of strength, muscle, and your energy ultimately. So it feels more aligned with how you want to look and feel. The other goal that most people come to me that want to focus on, so it's either fat loss, which I think is a really common goal for a lot of people, or maintenance. Maintenance, I would say, is my favorite goal, and it's actually the thing that most people struggle with the most. Lots of people, and you might relate to this watching this, have lost weight in the past and had success with that. It's the keeping it off, it's the maintaining the progress, which has been a struggle. And maintenance means keeping your weight steady and focusing on eating in a way that supports your energy, your consistent training, feeling good in your day-to-day life, whatever that looks like. And whichever path you choose this summer, the bigger goal is the same: feeling confident, strong, energized, especially when it comes to things like holidays, events, and like I said, your everyday life. Having a clear focus gives you direction, motivation. It helps you build a plan that actually supports your goals. So have a think about what your focus is right now for summer. Number two, let's focus on so pick a nutrition focus basically. And I will talk about these in more detail on the next couple of slides, but just to give you an idea of the two approaches I advise you with your nutrition. So one is calorie tracking. It's helpful for education, it's helpful for awareness, it's helpful for setting goals. If you do want to do this, I recommend using apps such as MyFitnessPal, and I will talk you through a little bit about how to do this if you want help with that on the next slide. Of course, though, there is options not to track calories and still make really good progress with your nutrition because tracking isn't for everyone, and that's absolutely fine. I recommend being able to monitor and decide your portion sizes in some way. And actually, a really useful tool, which I'm going to share with you today, is a hand portion guide, and I will go over that in a second as well. Um, the main thing is basically with your nutrition is that you choose the right approach for you, which you'll feel you'll be able to stick to consistently. There's no point starting something or trying to maintain something that you just know is really hard to stick to. So it's about kind of figuring out what works best for you, your personality, your lifestyle, etc. Step three, set realistic goals and expectations with your training because there's no one size fits all when it comes to the best type of exercise. The best type of exercise, and I'm sure you've heard this before, is what works best for you and what you are able to do consistently. So I would say right now, before summer, consider what you've got going on in the coming weeks and what is actually important to you right now. What can you realistically fit in? There's usually no need whatsoever for drastic weight loss or starting a super intense, time consuming exercise plan. Those are the things that generally don't last and you aren't able to maintain. It is worth asking yourself, would it be unrealistic of you to expect yourself to achieve a certain goal that you might be thinking about in the given time frame that you have with the plans that you have coming up so this summer? So this is really a prompt to think about what is realistic for you as well as what you'd like to achieve. Are you prepared to change your behaviors to suit those goals? So, for example, if fat loss is your goal, you are going to have to compromise on meals and drinks to allow for a calorie deficit. You are going to have to make an effort to increase your exercise and or your walking. This is when really thinking about how you want to feel on holiday and in the summer, rather than aiming for a specific weight goal, can be a really good idea. And it's one I encourage you to focus on primarily. And examples of that could be, rather than focusing on like losing a certain number of pounds, it could be, I want to wear my summer clothes, feeling confident in them. I want to be able to go to the beach and not feel self-conscious and have to wear a cover up the whole time. I want to be able to go to a pool with my kids and not overthink wearing a swimsuit. It could be like really as simple and as specific as that. So have a little think about what is relevant to you. Obviously, if you'd like to share in the chat, then please do, but there's no pressure at all. Just have a think, maybe even note it down. Sometimes it's nice to note these things down and yeah, get a bit of clarity with them basically. And something that I talk about to clients all of the time is success is consistency, not extremes. And that's why point number four is basically a reminder that you don't need to be perfect with your nutrition and training before your holiday or even during the summer months generally. You just need to stay consistent enough to feel good, basically. And that's what we're going to focus on. Um, Here we go. Here's a comment here. Absolutely love this. What a great idea. My focus is definitely starting to move more. I want to be more comfortable in my body when I'm at the pool and beach with my kids. I totally get that. And I think so many people will relate because when it comes down to it, it's not necessarily how much you weigh or what size you are. It's actually just how you feel when you're on holiday with your family. And I think that's a really nice focus because that gives you something that you can really start making good changes with through eating, through exercising. And hopefully now the bits that I'm going to suggest that you try and do will feel like that's a manageable approach for you. So yeah, I think those are really good goals. Okay, so just to briefly, and I won't go over this in too much depth, but you can always ask me questions afterwards, or there'll be a chance to email me afterwards if you have any questions about the approach that you want to take for your nutrition. But calorie tracking, if you choose to do it, it's not something you have to do forever. You can use it as a short-term tool to build awareness. It can be helpful for accountability. Maybe you've done it before and you're like, do you know what? I was really consistent when I did it, or I just need to rein it in a little bit. And it can be really helpful for that. It can help you learn more about your habits and help you make informed choices. So it gives you objective data, basically. That's why it's useful about what and how much you're eating. And it can help you understand your eating patterns, like what meals are keeping you full, where snacks and extras are sneaking in. I'd say that's a really useful point for it as well, or how your weekends differ from weekdays. It can also give you some clarity to your portion sizes. Sometimes we think we're eating well, but we're unknowingly overshooting our needs or underfueling. So calorie tracking can give you a bit more of a clearer picture. And like I said, it can also help with accountability. So for some people, committing to logging your food actually makes you think twice about the choices that you have and can help you make sure that they fit in with your calorie goals. But, and this is key, and this is something I always want people to know about calorie tracking. It's not about being perfect. It might feel like it should be perfect when you're logging in and out, but calorie tracking always has a margin of error, and that's okay. I want you to always remember the goal is progress, not perfection and not precision. If you choose how to track, here are a few points of how to do it effectively. So use a calorie calculator. You can Google, to be honest, to find one, but you can basically use it to estimate your daily calorie needs. So they're based on like your age, your height, your gender, your activity level, and your goal. So whether your goal is fat loss or maintenance or muscle gain. I just want to reiterate, it's not a magic number, it's just a starting point, and your real needs might be slightly higher or lower. So that's where trial and error really does come in. Number two is set a realistic range, not a rigid number. So for fat loss, for example, if that's your goal, you might aim for something like 1600 to 1800 calories per day, depending on your body and activity levels. For if the calorie calculator says that for fat loss, you need to be aiming for like, I don't know, 1683 calories per day, and you try to stick to that perfectly, that's going to add a bit more stress. It's going to add more rigidity. It's going to add more life admin, to be honest, to be trying to like track your calories and food to fit that specific number. And I do find that that's when people tend to give up and not be consistent. Whereas if you give yourself a calorie range, like I said here, 16 to 1800 calories, I know that's a 200 calorie range, but if that means that you're consistent for longer, you're going to see better progress. And the range gives you flexibility. Like some days you will eat more, you will be hungrier, your day plans might mean more food is involved. Some days you will naturally eat lower, perhaps when you're really busy or just it's not a real big foodie day, or your appetite is lower, like our monthly cycles, wherever we are at, will change hormonally, like even whether you've got menstrual cycles or whether you are like post menopause, we are going to have different phases in the month where we just naturally eat more or less. So it's good to know that you've got a bit of flexibility within those calories. The next point I wanted to make is do track consistently for a short window. So I recommend that at least 2 weeks of honest tracking, because this gives you a solid picture of your habits rather than just one good day. And I would really focus on, this being a learning process and not, like I said, being perfect. So use tracking to notice, what meals are filling you up, where are your snacks and your drinks adding up, or how could you swap foods and drinks to save calories if you need to? Are you hitting your protein targets? And yeah, like I said earlier, you don't need to track forever. Once you build awareness, you can transition to more intuitive eating with confidence then. And that's something that a lot of my clients do, because I don't want to promote logging your food into an app forever, but it can be a really useful tool to get started. Um, I also want to explain a non-tracking approach for food, which I think suits a lot of people, especially when you're busy and especially when you don't want another task like using your phone. Um, that it's completely valid to not to want to track calories, by the way. There is no right or wrong. It's about what works for you. It's kind of like the exercise side of things. It's about what works best for you. You can absolutely make progress without tracking by focusing on meal structure and portion awareness. And I would really recommend using something like this hand portion guide. So your hands are a great tool that you have for estimating portion sizes. They scale with your body size, and they're easy to use wherever you go, even for like a bit of a reference point. So if you look at this diagram here, and I have put a PDF together, which I'm going to send you in the email tomorrow with the recording and then with some points that I've gone over today, so you don't have to note everything down. But I'm going to just send you this diagram as well. But it basically gives you a bit of a guide. And again, like with calorie tracking, don't worry if it's not perfect. The point is, it gives you something to follow so that you're not completely winging it. But you see here, it says like like a palm-sized portion of protein. So, for example, if you eat chicken and you don't know how much chicken breast you should be having to have a decent amount of protein in that meal, like using your palm, like a chicken breast the size of your palm, is a really good starting point. Like if you want to have more than that, then great. And actually, a lot of things like chicken breasts, for an example, they come, don't they, in a size in a packet. So the likelihood is you're just going to have some of that portion of chicken breast. Like you might just have a breast out of that packet. But just making sure you've got like a palm-sized portion of protein. It might not be chicken, it might be tofu, it might be eggs, it might be Greek yogurt, but that's a nice first-hand guide. For veggies, I know this guide says an open hand. I advise to a lot of my clients, like fill your plate half full with veggies. Vegetables are so good for like obviously nutrients and but also keeping us full for not that many calories. They're really good for what we call food volume. You get a lot of food for your calories. They're not calorie dense. So if you're in a calorie deficit or you're just trying to eat a little bit less or you're trying to, not have as many calories because maybe you have been putting on weight and you want to stop doing that, then fill up your plate half with veggies. You're going to be full. You're going to get lots of nutrients in your diet and it's going to really help you stick within a sensible portion. Carbohydrates, a good goal is a fist. So that could be like a fist of rice, pasta, bread. Fats could be like one thumb. And I would say with fats for most people when they're cooking, I know it's the case for me, it would just be like the oil that you cook in, or it might be that you add some nuts or avocado or cheese. But fats are very calorie dense. We absolutely need them in our diet. So don't take them out completely, but just be aware that you're not going to have as much for the calories as you would as protein and carbohydrates. And you can adjust these proteins depending on your needs and what progress you're seeing. So, you know, how's your energy? How's your energy output that day? Have you had a more active day? What are your goals right now? And for example, you can make portions smaller for fat loss. You could make more for the slightly bigger for maintenance. Or if you're trying to focus on performance, you might want to be eating more again. But this basically gives you a guide of how to measure portions with food without weighing anything and without tracking calories in an app. So it's quite a nice, flexible, low pressure structure. Um, the other things I wanted to mention just in terms of nutrition, and then we'll move on to exercise, but I want you to build each meal around protein and plants. That's a really good rule of thumb, and it's the simplest and most powerful nutrition habit, in my opinion. If you start every meal with protein and some sort of veggies or fruit, protein helps keep you full, supports muscle maintenance and building muscle. It also helps with your cravings because it's a really nice satiating nutrient. So it helps keep you full and it stops you kind of craving other things. Vegetables and fruits obviously give you volume, as I've mentioned. They give you fiber, they give you nutrients. And once that base is there, then you can add your carbs and fats based on your hunger levels and your activity from that day and your preferences. Some people prefer to eat really low carb and high fat, and some people are the other way around. I personally love carbohydrates, so I'd rather eat a high carb diet, but that's been through trial and error of me figuring that out over the years as well. So there's no one size fits all. Again, it's about eating in a way that you enjoy. Um, and rather than feeling like you've got to restrict or you've got to cut things out completely. So this hand portion guide basically is kind of low effort but high impact, and it can really help you build long-term habits that you can use on holiday, at a buffet, or in restaurants, or on busy days. And it can keep you in tune with your hunger as well and help you avoid overeating. So yeah, I would say this is something to keep in mind. And like I said, I will email it to you for reference if you ever want to use it. Next, then, and we are getting there, I promise. It's kind of like this is the main bulky part of this workshop, and then it's kind of a bit of a summary at the end. Um, Let me just check you're doing okay there. Fab, continue to like chat or ask questions if you want to. Okay, we've spoken a lot about nutrition, but if you want to feel amazing this summer, we also do need to talk about movement. One of the biggest mistakes I see is people deciding that they need to completely overhaul their exercise routine before summer. And suddenly they're trying to do 6 workouts a week. They're trying to do loads of cardio. They're burning themselves out before summer has even started. And instead, I want you to think about what is actually realistic for you, kind of like what I mentioned at the beginning. Could you commit to 2 to 3 strength sessions per week? Or if you're already doing that, maybe, can you work a little bit harder in those workouts? Could you increase your daily movement? Could you follow a plan consistently rather than jumping between workouts? Think about maybe where you could improve from where you're at right now. Because this isn't about doing, like I said, some like crazy intense plan. It's about working up from where you're at. That is how you start to see progress that is sustainable. And personally, you might already know this about me, but I'm a huge fan of strength training because it helps us build and maintain muscle, which we naturally lose from the age of 30, which I know is a depressing fact, but it is true. It helps us improve our body composition. That's when I said about like our ratio of fat to muscle. And when people tell me they want to look toned, that means building muscle and losing fat essentially. They also want to, strength training also helps you, feel and be stronger, supports your long-term health, and ultimately shapes how your body looks, but also functions now and way into the future. And the key with exercise is not doing random workouts. The key is progressive overload. And that means gradually asking your body to do a little bit more over time. And that might mean adding weight, increasing reps, adding more sets, improving your technique, or simply just becoming more consistent. Like if you're watching this thinking, I'm not currently doing any strength training, then just starting strength training would be a really good way to make your body work a bit harder. And I guarantee you'd see some really good results just from starting. And if fat loss is one of your goals, don't underestimate the power of daily movement. So that is simply walking, increasing your step count. That might be instead increasing your step count around the house or at the shops. It doesn't have to be going out for hours walking every day. And a step count can make a huge difference to your overall energy expenditure without leaving you exhausted. So it's a really nice way of just gradually improving where you're at and seeing some really good progress. And I just want to also mention steps aren't just useful for fat loss. So don't only focus on your steps when weight loss is a goal. Walking is fantastic for our cardiovascular health, our stress management, our recovery, our general well-being. And so before summer starts, officially, you might even feel like summer has already started, but until we're fully in, the throes of summer, ask yourself, what exercise plan can I realistically stick to for the next 2, 3 months? Because consistency will always beat intensity when it comes to long-term results. So I'm repeating myself here, I know, in terms of like consistency over perfection and flexibility over precision and, you know, consistency over intensity, but they're the same concept, aren't they? It's about doing what you can do for a long period of time, in a way that feels manageable and becomes part of your life. Okay, so from there then, and we've covered nutrition and training now, I want to talk about what you need to do during summer because your habits don't need to go on pause just because it's the summer. And this is just something that I advise my clients to do not necessarily just when they're on holiday. And don't get me wrong, if you want to just switch off fully on holiday and not do any of this, that's absolutely fine. I will cover some tips to go over what to do when you get back. But if you want to go on holiday, or maybe you've got several trips coming up, or maybe you just know that over summer, I don't know, you're on the school holidays with your kids, you're out of routine, and that you need some sort of like goal and concept in mind to not completely throw you off track. I get my clients to follow something called the make room method. So the idea is really simple. If you want the thing, whether it's ice cream, the cocktails, the barbecue, you could absolutely have it. You just need to be intentional and quote unquote make room for it in your day. So you're enjoying yourself without completely losing your rhythm and losing or going into that all or nothing mindset. I think that's what I always want to help people with, especially at times when your routine is completely different. It's avoiding that all or nothing mindset. That can be the biggest win. Sometimes that can be the biggest focus, which is definitely a really good one. And just to summarize how it works, so basically what I advise people do is if you know you've got a bigger dinner or event coming up in the evening, eat lighter earlier in the day. And I don't mean skip meals and I don't mean, really restrict yourself because that usually backfires. But if you keep breakfast and lunch a bit lighter and more balanced, maybe really prioritize protein and veggies at those meals, then you're going to basically have more calories to use later in the day to enjoy those more indulgent meals in the evening. And I've got an example for this actually, because this is when I really kind of developed this concept. And that's when a year or so, not last summer, the summer before, I went on an all-inclusive holiday and you could literally have dessert at every meal. I think that's really common for all-inclusive hotels, isn't it? There's always like a little sweet section. And while it was important for me to enjoy dessert on holiday, because I bloody love a sweet treat, I made a compromise to myself and I chose to have just one dessert each day. And to be honest, I usually chose that for after dinner rather than loading up at breakfast and lunch and then dinner as well. And that small compromise really helped me enjoy that dessert each day without feeling like I'd stuff myself. Because I think a lot of the time when you're at all-inclusive hotels, especially, or just, in situations where food is in abundance, you do end up consuming stuff just because it's there. Whereas actually the fact that I was still allowing myself dessert, but it was just one per day rather than 3 or 4 per day, that really helped me enjoy it. And I didn't feel like I'd overeaten massively at the end of the holiday. Even though I'd eaten more than usual, I didn't feel like I'd eaten because it was just there. I'd actually eaten because I was mindful and had made that choice to eat it, which felt really good. Also in these situations, so especially when eating out or at a buffet, you can still prioritize protein and veggies. So on that same holiday, even with all the options available, I still built my meals around protein and vegetables first, or at breakfast, it was mostly like protein and fruit. And that mindset really helped make a big difference because it helped me feel more satisfied. It helped me enjoy my food. I still know I was getting a healthy, balanced diet, which ultimately makes me feel good. It's not because I feel like I have to be healthy all the time. It actually makes me feel good physically as well as mentally. And I don't enjoy that overly full feeling. I think a lot of people probably relate to that because that can just make you feel a bit rubbish the rest of the day. So this was again a really nice format to follow with food, and it was a nice compromise. The other thing I would say is like not stacking indulgences back to back. So you don't have to go all in on everything just because it's the summer or just because you're on holiday. Like dessert, having lots of alcoholic drinks and skipping your exercise. Why don't you choose what you will really enjoy and let that be your indulgence? So it's about making conscious swaps, not saying no to everything. And actually, on the topic of alcohol, a really good compromise with alcohol is that stay hydrated at the same time as drinking. Alternate your drinks with water or a soft drink and slow down and enjoy them. I'm sure we could have all done with this advice at certain times in the past. I definitely could have. But when you're drinking alcohol, a little intention goes a long way in helping you feel good the next day. And at least, even if you've had a few alcoholic drinks, but you've also stayed hydrated as much as possible, that's going to have a good knock on effect on your choices the next day as well. And also, just to cover exercise, I just wanted to put the point of move your body if you want to on holiday. You can absolutely exercise when you're away if you want to. And maybe that looks like using the hotel for some gym sessions. Maybe that looks like going on a run or going swimming or having some long walks. But equally, if you want a week completely off training, that's okay too. A week away from the gym or your sessions does not undo months of consistency. And that's why I always talk about building habits, not doing anything faddy, because if you know you exercise regularly the rest of the year, you can enjoy not exercising on holiday and know that it's not going to make a difference at all. And actually, sometimes the recovery can do you good. So it's good to keep that in mind as well. Like it's like with the food, make a conscious choice to do what makes you feel good, and then you're not feeling guilty either way. You're not trying to earn your food through exercise and you're not trying to compensate for enjoying yourself. So I think that's a good point to keep in mind as well. And the goal really isn't to avoid treats or stick perfectly to your plans on holiday and you know your training plan, etc. But it isn't to enjoy some indulgence in it and enjoy a break without losing your balance overall. So you can enjoy a holiday and come back feeling energized and proud of how you handled it as well. So from there then, post summer. So after the holidays, because this is where your mindset really matters. First of all, I just want to mention how if things didn't go to plan and you feel like you have massively indulged on holiday, you didn't fail. You lived your life, and that's not only okay, that's part of the plan as well, is being able to live your life and not spiral into the I've failed mindset. Summer might have, and likely will have for most of us, bring extra meals out, more drinks, less structure, and that's normal. Instead of jumping into damage control, like I mentioned earlier, I want you to zoom out and just reset yourself gently. So here's how to do that. Return to your foundation. So focus on the basics. That means having protein at most meals, like I've already mentioned, having lots of veggies and, getting lots of color in your diet to get a nice diverse range of nutrients. Balancing your portion sizes, whether that means, tracking your calories, which I'll mention in a second, or using the hand portion guide again. It's kind of reintroducing the habits that you might have been using pre-holiday. Getting in your regular movement, that might be returning to weekly workouts, getting in some daily steps. These habits always work no matter the season, by the way. So this isn't obviously just returning from a summer holiday. It can be returning from a period of not doing these things. Like resetting yourself with the basics is definitely the first point of call. Like I said, you could consider tracking again for nutrition, but with a different mindset of like, rather than maybe focusing on fat loss for my holiday or being a bit more considered for my holiday, think of it as you're not punishing yourself, you're just simply regaining awareness of what you're eating. Because it is very easy when you're out of the habit of focusing on portion sizes, etc., to just kind of like forget everything that you've learned. I definitely get into places where I think, God, my vegetable intake has slipped a bit, right? I could do with kind of refocusing on like how many veggies I am eating per day, making sure I get some nutrients in every meal. A short window of tracking can be really helpful for that. And I've just been like maybe 1 or 2 weeks overall, because it can really help you spot where your habits have shifted and how you could adjust then without doing anything extreme. And I would definitely say reflect and ask yourself, at the end of summer, what went well this summer? What went well when I was on holiday? What felt easy? What made me feel good? What would I want to tweak next time? So, reflecting and learning from our experiences is really, really helpful. And I would say, no matter how you feel after a holiday or at the end of summer, have a think about that, learn from that process. Don't punish yourself, don't feel guilty, but put some basics in place to help you kind of reignite that consistent habitual behaviors with food and exercise, but don't punish yourself for things that didn't quite go to plan. Like we're human, we're living our lives, and that's okay. So at this point, again, I just want you to kind of look at the bigger picture because it's not just the summer and the summer months that really all this stuff is applicable to. It really is all year round advice. And I want to make sure that we take the pressure off because you don't need to eat perfectly to make progress. And I want to make it clear that balance wins over perfection every single time. If you take anything away from this workshop, I really hope it is that. When you're a busy person, spinning lots of plates, time isn't always on our side. We have to be realistic about how to set ourselves up for success and not failure. And that means focusing on what we can do and being consistent with that. And what matters most is that you're not consistently making what matters most is that you are consistently making choices that align with your goals, but over time, not just, in a very short period, not in one meal, not in one workout or around one summer holiday. Across weeks and multiple months throughout the year, that is when this stuff is really going to come into its own and help you see really good progress. And think of it like this, if most of your choices that you make with food and movement are supportive to your goals, so like you're eating your meals with protein, you've got veggies in there, you're monitoring your portion sizes, there's still plenty of room to enjoy the things you love around those basics. If over the weeks and months as a whole, you are exercising consistently and pushing yourself where you can and showing up even when you don't always feel like it, that's when you're going to see progress. You don't need to earn treats or make up for them later. I would really encourage you to just focus on picking the moments that you really want to enjoy and then moving on and getting back to your routine. And that is how I coach my clients. It's about building habits that become their normal, and then their treats and their indulgences and their kind of out of routine experiences are just part of life. And then they get back to their usual routine after. And a good rule of thumb, which you might have heard about before, is called the 80-20 approach. And it is simply just aiming for 80% of your meals and habits to be aligned with your goals. The other 20% is you living your life, and that's you being flexible. And that's where birthdays, barbecues, holidays, spontaneous nights out, and breaks from exercise will fit in. And not only is this approach more enjoyable, it's just actually more sustainable. Um, and we are getting there now, I promise. Thank you for bearing with me. Hopefully, you have felt like this is a useful workshop with all this information and I haven't overwhelmed you. There's just so much I always want to cover. Um, so just to summarize, really, I want to leave you with a few key reminders is that your summer can include both fun and progress. You don't have to choose between enjoying your life and feeling good in your body. It's not all or nothing. You can enjoy the barbecues, you can enjoy the holidays, you can enjoy nights out and still move towards your goals. And consistency will always beat perfection. I think that is probably my favorite quote, isn't it, of my sort of coaching ethos. I want you to remember that one off-plan meal, one missed workout, or one holiday, it doesn't undo everything. And it's just like one perfect day won't fix everything either. It's about the choices that you make most of the time, not every single time. And that, like I said earlier, that is exactly what I help my clients with in my Thrive program, because the all or nothing approach and the rigid diets and the unsustainable plans, they essentially don't work. If you embark on a diet plan, lose weight or see progress, but can't maintain it, that plan did not work. And this is why I do not focus on quick fixes. We focus on building real sustainable habits that support your health and your goals and fit in with your life all year round. And whether you are just starting out of all of this, maybe all of this is new to you and you think, God, I've got to start somewhere, or maybe you're getting back into it after a break. What I would really encourage you focus on is, having some structure, maybe getting some support if it's something that feels like very overwhelming for you, but keeping a flexible mindset so that you can do it your way. And actually, this is about you fitting these things in with your life and not putting your life on hold to achieve them. And those concepts are what I really hope you do take away from this workshop today. So If there, and I will mention this just because if there is anything that resonated with you today, or you're thinking, I love help putting all of this into action, I would always love to talk to you about whether working with me is something that could be a good fit for you. I do have a special offer for workshop attendees on the next slide, which I will briefly mention. I'm not very good at selling my services, but I thought whilst I'm talking about this today, I'll just mention this is something that I do help people with. Um, so I will talk about that in a second. But before I explain that, I do just want to say thank you so much for joining me today. I'll be sending out the recording as well as the PDF that I mentioned, which is like a checklist that you can refer back to anytime for a reminder of what we've gone over today. You might have sat there and taken notes, which is fab. But that will just be like a brief summary then of what I've covered and things that you can keep in mind. If you're like, oh, what did Sean say in that workshop? You can go back to that for reference. You can obviously rewatch the presentation as well. But if you just want to go and have some bullet points, it will be there for you. And it will also have there a copy of the hand portion guide, and I've put a link to a calorie calculator that I quite often use for clients in there as well. So before you go, I just want to mention what my special offer is, and you can just get back to me in your own time if you'd like to chat more about this. But it is basically for anyone who has watched this workshop and thought, you know what, I know what I should be doing. I just struggle to stay consistent with it, or I'm really trying and I'm just not seeing the progress I want to be, or I'd love some support to really feel good this summer and beyond. And that's exactly why I created my coaching program. So the next official intake isn't until later in July, but because this workshop is all about helping you feel more feel amazing this summer, I'm opening up a limited amount of spaces to join now on a flexible monthly basis. So inside Thrive, we'll work on exactly the principles we've covered today. So if anything has really flagged up to you as something you'd like to have help with, that is something that potentially this program could help with. And as a bonus for anyone who has joined this workshop and would like to sign up, I'll include a complimentary one-on-one call with me where we'll discuss your goals, your challenges, and create a personalized plan for what you want to achieve over the coming months. So this is ideal if you want support implementing these habits rather than trying to figure it out all alone. So if you would like information, and there is no pressure at all, I just obviously needed to mention it. I'll just give you an opportunity to reply to the email that I send out tomorrow. You can always message me on Instagram as well. I'm very responsive on there if you ever want to chat more about whether this would be a good fit for you. And to be honest, even if you just have questions about the workshop and would like to go through anything that I've covered, or maybe you've just got a specific question that you'd like a bit of advice with, there's potentially some free content that I've got, which I can just forward to you, which could be really helpful. So do reach out and let me know if there's anything that you've got questions about. But like I said, this special offer is valid for you guys that have signed up to the workshop as well. And then basically, just to finish, I just thought I'd put a slide of, do you have any questions? Let me just check if there's any in the chat box. Here we go. Thank you so much for this, Sean. Loved your tips, especially using the hand portion guide. And then you've got to go. That's absolutely fine. This was so helpful. Thank you so much. The portion size hand tips is amazing. Oh, thank you so much, guys. I'm so glad to have a few of you here live. I really appreciate the company, and I'm really glad that this was a useful workshop. I really hope you've taken away some tangible points that you can put into process. And like I said, if it's the right time now to maybe invest in coaching, I would love to have you come and work with me, but I'll be here in the future as well. You know, if you would ever like to chat more about how I could potentially help you with your goals, just reach out. But like I said, this workshop was the main focus of helping you right now with summer and beyond that. So thank you so much for joining and watching if you're watching the recording. And I will leave it there then. But thank you. Oh, here we go. One more comment. I love the idea of prepping and just focusing on a few specific things before launching into summer. And yeah, that is exactly what it's all about. It's not feeling like you've got to suddenly go gung ho on, oh my God, I've got to restrict food or do loads more exercise. It's actually about prepping a few things which feel manageable, especially if you're like a busy mum or work is stacking up because you've got deadlines, or you travel a lot and you know you've got multiple trips coming up and you just don't have time to do anything super fancy in preparation for that. We don't want super fancy. We want the basics that you can then repeat over summer and after that. So I'm really glad that those points have helped. I will let you go now. I appreciate I said this workshop will probably be like 30 to 45 minutes. I'm at 50 minutes now, so I will let you all go. But like I said, I just love talking about these topics and I'm really glad that you got something out of it. So thank you so much for joining. I will be in touch tomorrow with the recording if you're watching this live. And like I said, message me anytime if you've got any questions or I can help you again in future. Thanks, guys. Bye.